welcome everybody to another edition of On the Trail in Search of the Living Legends. It's going to be episode 21 of season 5. I got my partner and brother here, Nick Valente. Nick, how's it going, man?
Hey, Jay, I'm doing great. Absolutely great. And we actually have a really great guest on today. I've been speaking with John for about the last couple of years now. And John's from, I guess, what would you call it, John? Northeastern section of Texas?
More so north central.
North central section of Texas. Okay. I'll get that right someday. But yeah, he's just a little bit away from Fort Worth, Texas. And he's had some really crazy experiences that I've been communicating with him about over the years. And yeah, we're going to bring it out today. It's going to be really good.
Cannot wait.
So anyway, John, you just live with your wife on a small ranch of some sorts?
Yeah, it's just a small homestead.
And around you, do you have any other places that are, close to you where they're inhabited by people?
On one fence line, I've got maybe 30 houses that are along a fence line. The property that surrounds me on 3 sides just sold to a developer about 2 years ago, right whenever all this stuff started happening.
Yeah.
Whenever they started kind of cleaning up that area and trying to clear out a lot of the old buildings and everything that were in the area and a lot of movement, I started having experiences that were not normal, at least not the normal ones that I grew up dealing with.
Right.
Well, something we spoke about was like there was a barn of sorts off. It was like an abandoned barn off of one of your fence lines.
Yeah.
And you actually found saliva in there, dripping saliva. I mean, you want to go over that a little bit?
So the one with the saliva on it was actually the barn on my property, and I had known, yeah, I had found where something had gone up into the hayloft, which is a straight ladder, which, okay, I could see a cat doing that. I would never expected a dog doing it, but the tracks were very much canine. They had the claw marks out and everything. And whenever I went up in the hayloft, it was an area that was probably good 6 foot across, was cleared off like a bed, where it made a bedding up there. So I had set a game camera up in there to try to figure out, get a picture of it. And at the time that I found the saliva, it's also the time that I got that big print that's right next to that 45, where I had my gun out.
Yeah, I remember you sent me that.
Yeah, and so here's a print that's next to it's an FN 45. So the gun is 8 inches, the barrel, just the top slide and barrel and all. The track is as big as the gun, if not a little bigger. And I was down there to find out what was going on with my camera, because it was a cellular camera, and it kept on telling me error, like something was going on with it. And so I'm recording as I'm going up to it. On the recording, you can hear little scratches and what sounds like sniffs. And then what you see is me kind of following the ladder up, and I see quite clearly a wet drop of saliva on the wall behind the ladder. And it's too high for a cow. It's something that had to be above, almost up in the hayloft.
Right.
About that time, a little bit of dust falls from above me. So I start backing up and kind of looking a little more so above me. And the rafters, these are 2x6 rafters, and they're doubled up. And it's bowed down a good 3 to 4 inches right behind the opening going up there.
Wow.
So something heavy was up there right behind the opening. And I just kind of backed up, and that was about whenever the smell hit me. And I said, yeah, it's time to get out of here.
Now, John, the type of ladder that goes up to that loft, it goes straight up and down, correct? It's not on a slant.
Correct.
All right, so, and it's a wooden ladder. I don't know about you, but I don't know any dog, a regular dog of any breed, that could actually climb up a ladder. That ladder is probably what, about 10 feet from the ground up?
So the floor of the hayloft is about 8 foot.
All right.
So yeah, you'd have to go at least 8 to 10 foot to get up it. The only dogs I know of are some of the Belgian Malinois, the ones that are
Yeah.
trained to do it.
Yeah. But they are
And
specifically trained to do it, and they can also climb walls the way they're trained.
exactly.
But
Exactly.
your normal dogs are just not going to be able to do that.
No.
And
No.
the 2x6s up there in the loft being bowed like that, I mean, God, I mean,
That's against me.
we're talking about,
Yeah,
Three-
whenever I'm walking around up there, they might bow down a 1/4 inch,
mhm.
Right.
and
What-
I'm 200 pounds.
You're 200. So if they're bowing more than that, this thing's 300-400. And I remember you and I were talking about it, and you were saying, I guess, other experiences you had, that we were figuring it's possibly it's juvenile dogmen. Any thoughts on that?
From what I can gather, there's a breeding pair with a juvenile, and then there's another male that was kind of encroaching the territory.
Mm.
Mm.
The juvenile is very curious. It has not been threatening towards us in any form or fashion. The male that seems to be encroaching the area, he's a little sketchy as far as that goes. The breeding pair, those were the first ones I encountered. Obviously, my first reaction was, well, it's a large predator. It's on my farm. I shot it. That didn't work
Oh.
out too well. So,
Would you
What-
shoot him with, John?
Yeah, what'd you use? 223,
no, I used a 40 caliber.
40 cal
I had my
pistol?
pistol. Yeah, I had my service pistol on me, so I shot him.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, using a Hornady critical defense and a 40 Smith & Wesson, and it was sideways, kind of crouched down like a coyote or a wolf does whenever it's trying to track something. I shot it broadside. You could see the impact, and it turned, stood up at me, and growled. And of course, at that time, I said the F-bomb and said, well, Valhalla, here I come, and stepped
Yeah.
towards it, fired 3 more shots.
And did those all
Yeah.
connect?
Yes. 2 to the chest, 1 to the head.
Wow.
Whenever it hit on the head, it kind of shook it like it stung, and then kind of glared at me and didn't run. It just kind of turned and essentially meandered away.
Yeah.
My God.
You were using hollow points, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's what I've been preaching to people, that if you're going to fire on these things, it's a higher caliber, number one, and ball ammo, because you need penetration.
Yep.
Hollow points are used for humans, to stop a human, and not so much on these things that are, if they're an adult, 650 pound wise. They've got
Yeah.
thicker bones, they've got thicker hides, and they're all muscle. And to penetrate that, I mean, look at a bear. If it's going to take down a bear, it'll most likely be able to do some damage to a Dogman. So I guess a 10 millimeter, pistol round with ball ammo would be more to the liking, to hurt it much better. But wow, that 40 cal just binged it in the head, and it just got pissed.
Yeah. It more so, it kind of looked at me like it was more trouble than it was worth. So it decided to walk away. I guess it was afraid I might get a lucky shot.
Right.
Yeah, in the eyeball or something,
The
maybe.
eyeball.
And that would definitely have done it. About what time of day
but-
was that, John?
Probably, I was about to head into work, so it was 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
Hmm.
Can you give us a description at all, John? The physical description, how big?
That one. So
Yeah.
the first one I dealt with, black fur, or at least very dark fur. Approximately whenever it's on all fours, it's a good 4 foot to the shoulders easily, maybe 4.5 foot. When it
God.
stood up, it was about 7 foot. It also has a very nasty scar on the snout now.
I would
Compliments
say.
of me.
Busy
I've
area.
gotten a closer look at it later. It does have a scar, so I apparently got it right on the edge of the snout.
Wow.
And what I would assume is the male in the breeding pair is closer to 8 foot, silver color. Definitely a big one.
What do you think the weight he weighs out at? Just a guesstimate.
That one, a guesstimate, easily 600 to 700 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an alpha male there.
Yep.
The pup is fairly small. It's still, well, my wife actually saw it Friday. The pup, last time I saw it, it's probably pushing 250, 300 pounds. It's the size of almost a yearling calf.
Wow.
So it's a pretty good size, but it's definitely a lot smaller. And it's, like I said, it's more so curious about what's going on. Anytime we're outside and we have music or anything like that, we'll catch glimpses of it moving in the tree lines, watching us.
Yeah. Now, what we were talking about going back into last year, I was trying to figure out the reason why they're in your area. And I mean, you said it right at the beginning. You've got a developer over there and they're developing the land and it's pushing them. And it's pushing them, I guess, towards your area. And you have a water source near you, don't you, someplace?
Oh, yeah. There's a creek that runs through me. I've got 3 ponds on me. So they,
yeah, that's why they're hanging out in your area.
Yeah. Food source would be the wild pigs that run through. They tend to follow the pigs. So it's kind of a given. If I've got the pigs in there at the time, then I'm going to have them.
Any fish in that water?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So right there, water source, food source.
Yeah.
Just don't, I don't think we ever figured out where they would be staying. They either stay in caves, burrows, mine shafts, and the like that. Do you have anything in that area?
There's several caverns in that area. This was an area that was heavily inhabited by the Comanche Indians. And there's also several, like I said, there's several outbuildings, barns, and old houses and stuff that are not being used that are still on that property because the developers haven't even, since they started cleaning on it, they cleaned on it a little bit and then it just went quiet. I don't know what's going on with that. Other than one idea is that the guy that they had out there cleaning stuff is scared.
I'd imagine so.
Can't blame him.
I want to get back to that, but I just had a thought. Most of your sightings on these dogmen, is it during the daytime, the nighttime, split between the two?
Split between the two.
So I mean, they're just bold enough to come out now. Now, getting back into those buildings and everything, I guess it just looks like they're not, not anytime soon. Are these developers going to knock them down? Because I'd imagine they want to knock them down and clear it away for what? What are they putting up in your area anyway? Townhouses or regular houses?
They're going to try for that one to put regular houses up, but they're going to have a lot of greenbelt too. And they're waiting to get groundwater out there, or not groundwater, but surface water. So they don't have any kind of infrastructure. They have to have the infrastructure before they can build those.
So you guys have septic out there, or do you have regular piping? You have septic, so that's what they're going to put in. Do you know what kind of acre zoning they're going to have for each house? Is it like a 5-acre zoning, a 2, 1, or?
Well, right now it's zoned for half acre is the smallest they can do. But they're trying to push for 40 and 50 foot lots.
Oof.
So they have to get
Wow.
the infrastructure to do it, which would be the water and the sewer.
Right. What do you got? You guys, of course, you have electricity out there, but I mean, you have gas?
Oh yeah.
All right, so they got to put that infrastructure in too. So the gas, the water and sewer, all that other
Yeah.
stuff. I get, and it looks like
So
you're
they're
trying to squeeze a
5,
lot of
6
houses
years
into
out.
one area.
4,000 houses.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That is something. Jay, I mean, they're going to be pushing them, and
They're
they're
gonna
either
be
going to
crazy.
go through John's property, or the Dogman I'm talking about,
Yeah.
or move away, go
Yeah.
someplace else. But wow, you're going to have some company there, John. It seems
Yeah.
like for quite a while they're working in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I said, just something else to watch for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you and the wife run pistols and rifles while you're
Oh yeah.
going back and forth and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
Damn.
So,
Any intrusions on your house? Like any tapping on the windows, any knocking on the
yes.
sides? That
Yeah,
I'd
we've
like to
had
hear about. Yeah.
scratching on the windows. We've had tapping on the side of the house. We've had running across the roof of the house. Um, a lot of times they'll try to do something to bait me outside,
Mm.
Mm.
and the first time they did that, it didn't work out too good for them. So it's the breeding pair seems to leave us alone for the most part. It's that one male that, well, he and I kind of got into it. So
Seems like he has
um,
nothing else better to do. And the juvenile being curious, in life and everything. It's
yeah.
going to be coming by, but it looks like you got a situation with that one. He needs to get himself a mate. It looks
Yeah.
like.
Well, after our last encounter, I don't know if he'll be able to do that.
No. You
That's
upgrading any in the rifle, or what are you using?
yeah, I have. At that point in time, I was just running with my 5.56 just because it's something I had. I knew that I needed something with some better penetration, so I was alternating the rounds in the standard magazine between ball ammo, steel core, ballistic tip, and hollow points, thinking that something might stick. And but sure enough, I had to go outside and turn the water off to the garden one night because we forgot and left it on. So instead of flooding it, I went out there to turn that off. And I just happened to catch wind of that telltale smell of rotten death and stale dog urine. So I shined the flashlight in the direction. There he was, about 100 yards away. And it stood up and charged me. And whenever it did charge me, I stepped forward about 3 steps and then dropped to a knee into a shooter stance. And apparently it was just a bluff charge, but either way, I wasn't going to take to it. So whenever it stopped, I could see quite well that it was a male, and that gave me a target.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I fired one, it dropped to the ground, was thrown around, screaming, yelling. Well, I guess screaming and yelling as best it could. Basically, the same thing as what a coyote does whenever it gets shot. It was essentially trying to bite it where I shot it. Shot it twice more in the abdomen, once in the neck. About that time, it decided to get its feet under it and take off away from me in the direction towards one of those empty houses. Whenever it did do that, I put 2 more shots into it, going for soft tissue. So I'd kind of learned after the first time I dealt with them that going for areas like the chest cavity and the head, the bone density was probably too much. So I was going for soft targets.
Right.
If I could send something up through the inside, through the abdomen towards the chest cavity from the inside, I was going to go for it. So it obviously it took off. There was blood, not as much as what most everybody would expect, but it's also the same time. If it's canine, which is pretty much how it seems to act and seems to look, other than being able to stand on back legs and being abnormally large, anytime a canine is hit or anything like that, the adrenaline on them gets so high that they do not lose the blood flow out like a person does. They generally do not start bleeding hard and heavy until they settle down and calm down. And so, like I said, there was a little bit of blood splatter, but not enough for me to really collect anything of. Then the next week is we were out working the garden. I was on the tractor. The wife was over there doing something. She came over and stopped me and told me that she said it sounded like somebody was working over there at those houses at the where the house and the outbuildings are on that other property. Excuse me. And that it sounded like a man screamed, like almost either he saw a snake or, something scared him. Then 4 gunshots, and then dead silent. Okay.
Wow.
Well, for one, I'm not going to go over there because A, it'd be trespassing.
Yeah.
2, if it's what I thought it was going to be a bad situation. So it was kind of one of those things. I went upstairs to where I could kind of see that house. I looked through binoculars and I could see a truck sitting there with the door open, but I couldn't see any movement. So it was still one of those things of, without me hearing the gunshots and the scream, and it's like, okay, I don't know. It could have been just, a snake, anything of the sort. I'm not going to push it. Well, the truck was there the next day with the door open, just the exact same thing.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I'm not about to call the sheriff's department or anything else, because again, it's not my farm, not my property. I have no business going over there. So surely, maybe it was just an accident and the guy got another ride or something like that, whatever. The following day, as I was leaving to go to work in the morning, I was on the main road driving by the entrance to that property, and there were 3 black SUVs pulling in through the gate. The one that was manning the gate was in full kit, and I mean full contractor's kit. The same kind of kit that I wore overseas. So I know quite well what these guys are, what they're doing. It was very much a cleanup crew. Basically kept driving, acted like I didn't know nothing. Because quite frankly, I don't want to deal with 3 SUVs full of trained men.
Right.
So you never saw a sheriff's department go over there? No ambulance, no nothing like that. You just saw the black SUVs pull up, and this is a couple days later, actually, right?
Yeah, 2 days later.
Wow.
So, and then it was one of those situations that, okay, I came home from work and it was summertime, so it's hot. And a lot of times I'd put shorts or something like that on, get out of my uniform, put shorts on, and go do the chores on the farm. Well, for some reason this day, it was a nice hot one, so I felt like wearing a kilt. It was probably a funny thing that I did. I'm outside, I'm doing the chores, and I happen to see that telltale glint of glass reflection. And of course, I'm sitting here thinking amateurs. But, you see that. I do my best to kind of act like I don't see it and don't realize somebody's watching me from over there. And the best way for me to do that is just kind of walk over there and relieve myself. Figure if they're recording something, they're going to get a good show.
And they're going to find out finally what they wear underneath those kilts.
Yeah, exactly. So, now granted, do that. That's the easiest way for me to kind of point the fact that I don't realize I'm being watched.
Yeah.
And I go on about my business and finish the chores and everything else. And then the next following day, I see one of the I see the tail end of one of the trucks going over. It's still on that neighboring property, but it's on the north side of me this time, going over the hill towards the creek bottom, which is what I figured most of the time these things are at. Just they're probably more towards the creek. It's more heavily wooded and just more places to hide down that way. But that was my experience with them.
John, did at any time anybody come over to talk to you? You know,
No,
from said authorities? Nobody, huh?
nope, nobody
Wow.
ever did.
Huh.
So it was one of those things where I think they were watching me to see if they could determine if I did know anything or if I had seen anything.
Right.
So I'm sure I was under surveillance for about a week or two.
Wow.
Possibly a little longer, and then they just gave up.
Now, just going back to, you know, putting the camera up in the barn, I just wanted to make some note of something. Jay, this is something you and I have found out over doing our research over the last 6 years in reference to surveillance cameras, trail cams and the like, even regular handheld cameras. A lot of times they get interfered with because, well, Jay, like we found out, you know, a little while ago, from doing research, is that these cryptids, Dogman and Sasquatch, at least that we know of, they put off an energy, a certain
It's a
type
very
of
static
energy.
electricity. It's
Yeah,
almost like an EMP on itself.
yeah. So it's going to affect trail cams. It's going to affect cameras.
It also affects
battery power,
flashlights.
yeah, battery power and the like. So it's like, you know, wow, it's going to be awfully hard to get, you know, photographic evidence of these things, unless you're maybe 100 yards away and you got a photo, you know, a telescopic zoom lens and you're zooming in on them.
Which is about the best I've gotten. Like the video that I've sent you where it comes out while I was in the deer stand and it comes out into the field and moves uncannily fast and not like any cat or dog I've ever seen. And then it stops and stands up and stares straight at me.
Yeah. How does it know you're there? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, I'm sitting in a little pop-up blind. So it's obvious that there's something over there, but I was in amongst a bunch of hay bales and everything else. But yet my car's sitting behind the pond dam. So it could easily see my car. And that would be out of place. But at the same time, I'm sure it probably could hear me or it could smell me.
Yeah,
Sure.
well, that's a good point, though. You know, Jay, because like a bear, I can't believe this. I mean, a bear's sense of smell is 240 times stronger than a human's.
Yeah.
240 now. I mean, seriously,
Yep.
that's absolutely crazy. So I can't imagine what this cryptid could be, you know, sniffing you out there easily. He's sniffing you out saying, hey, this guy had pizza with pepperoni on it the other night and I could smell him, you know. He's out there. It's coming out of your pores.
Yep. And of course, at that time, the way I was hunting, I wasn't hunting with a scoped rifle. So it was kind of one of those things. It's 200 yards away.
Yeah.
I'm not about to start shooting at it. So
600 feet. Yeah. You definitely could use a scope for that.
John, I'm curious about something, you know, getting back to the energy they give off, that kind of thing. Have you ever suffered any repercussions from that energy directly towards you?
From that energy toward me?
Yeah. Have they used it against you?
Now, I have felt whenever they growl, it almost reverberates in your chest.
Yes.
Infrasound. Okay. So they've used infrasound.
And they looked at me very curiously whenever he did that too, because I just kind of shrugged it off and looked at him and raised the gun, and it kind of cocked its head to one side like, what's going on here? This ain't right.
Well, they don't understand, John. They're dealing with a Texan.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly because, you know, a Texan, if you're going to threaten them, they'll generally just pick the gun up and, you know, shoot you. because you threaten them. I mean, it's a bold threat right there. And this is a large, creature.
Yes.
But I think what Jay was trying to ask you is, did they ever try to use, well, that was infrasound, the growling, but the mind speak, anything like that going on? Like it sent something to you, a thought wave?
Never had anything like that. No.
Okay. No, that infrasound's bad enough.
So it's kind of one of those things, just from its body language and stuff, you can kind of read it. I've been around dogs enough that I kind of know enough about their psychology.
Right.
And essentially this thing has the same type of psychology as a dog for the most part. It's going to try to bluff you to start with, and if that doesn't work, then it's either going to try to move away or it's going to turn aggressive.
Right.
And it's just like whenever you have a big dog charge at you, if you stomp back at it, most of the time it's going to turn tail and run.
Sure.
I wouldn't suggest doing that to these unless you have enough of a bite to really get it.
Right. Right. Right.
And so they're essentially a very, very intelligent canine. And they're definitely not something to play around with. They're definitely not something you can tame.
Yeah.
They act very much like a wild dog does.
Okay.
They're curious about what's going on. So obviously loud noises. Anytime I'm out there running hay or anything like that, I'll usually see one keeping a watch in the trees. How come I can see them? I don't know.
Right.
I've dealt with paranormal, supernatural, whatever you want to call it, my whole life. I've always had to deal with it. Where we're right on the edge of the Chisholm Trail Ranch. There's a lot of death on that property and everything else. There's Indian burial grounds not too far from me.
Well, there it is right there. We were talking about that, you and I, John, a while back. The Indian burial grounds. Dogman has been noted over the decades as being a protector of the Indian burial grounds. They could be leftovers or cousins from, the ones that are there. And you are kind of close. So, there's something going against you there that you're going to have to put up with.
And on the same time, I've had my own theories on a lot of it and everything else, but to be honest with you, my head's not wired right, period. I've always been able to manage to do stuff. I can remember formulas. Whenever I went in to do the ASVAB, I was the last one in, first one out. I took the ASVAB less than 30 minutes, including the coding, and I was 96 percentile.
That was close. Wow. That is really quick. Wow.
So I've always seen things differently than majority of people. I've had a knack for combat, and it's almost like I see a different light wave or something like that. It's just something I've always been able to do. I don't know why. Somebody can tell me that they've been looking for something, and I can point it out to them. And it serves me quite well whenever I'm hunting.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I can spot things that are normally camouflaged. It works quite well.
But you probably have quite a bit of an enhanced sight and reflex reaction time, because that's quite good shooting that you displayed there on that Dogman.
Yeah. And grandmother always said I was born with a gun in my hand. So, growing up, that's what I did to pass the time. I went and shot. We had our own gun range. So, or I'd go walk the creek, and with a little 22, I'm shooting dragonflies at the ponds. So that's how I grew up. That's how I had my reaction times and everything else. And to be honest, I know I'm borderline autistic. High functioning autism, I guess, is what they're calling it now, because they. But it's one of those things that nobody really know it unless I said it.
Right.
So, and I have little tics that are obvious to tell, but they're just minor things. And now everybody's kind of jumping on that bandwagon. I see it all the time online. And, but they've already proven that a lot of the people that have that, different parts of their brain is firing. The average human, their brain, they're not using all of it. They're not able to see it. The human can't see all the light waves. They can't see 90% of what's around them.
Right.
And so if I've got different parts in my mind that's firing, then that might be the reason why I'm able to see a lot of that stuff, or why a lot of that stuff is drawn to me. I have a different energy or whatever. Most all of it would be considered crazy talk, but it is what it is. So
nothing you're going to say here is crazy, believe me.
No, it's not so crazy, because you're able to make decisions faster than the normal human. You can see certain spectrums of the light system out there where others can't, but you're not alone. Believe it or not, there's 4% of the world population that can do that too. So they could see, I mean, I could see 10%, Jay could see 10%. You're probably seeing more on the range of 18 to 20% of that light spectrum. And your ability to shoot, I mean, it's honed from childhood. Plus, add to that your ability to see, and add to that your ability to make a decision quickly and decisively. You're just one of those people out there that are able to do it quicker and better, you know, so that's good. What I wanted to ask you, John, when you were in, where did you go overseas? Where were you? Were you in the stand or Iraq?
So whenever I was actually in the service, I did not get deployed. I had gotten all my training and everything, and then I tore out my shoulder and my back. Whenever I got healed up from that, I was contacted by a contracting company because I was an equipment operator for the Navy.
Ooh, big demand.
So, yeah, I was contracted by a contracting company, construction, to go to Afghanistan because I was trained to run equipment in stressful situations.
Yep.
And that's what I did.
Okay, well, that's still going to lead me to my question. If you're in the stand, did you ever see anything unusual out there, cryptid wise?
Lots of stories of stuff. Lots of weird stuff would go on. We were more so kind of in the mountains, and it would definitely. It was one of those things you always felt like something was watching you. You just normally expected an AK round or an RPG come.
Yep.
So,
all right.
It was one of those things of, I was more concerned about the two-legged issues that could reach me at.
Right. I mean, RPGs are like lollipops out there. Everybody had one, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, and I was not exactly in equipment that was made to maneuver. So you would be in one of those dozers and you'd hear a ping off of it, and you're sitting here thinking, all right, which way did that come from?
Yeah, an AK round just hit you, and you're just glad it's not an RPG, and you're glad you just didn't run over an IED.
Exactly.
Oh man, no, I was hoping you were in the areas where they where some of the soldiers came back and told you of their told you of stories, or having personally had it happen to them, the giants over there, or had personally happened to them. There are Dogmen. Jay, there's Dogmen over there in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I'd heard all the stories and everything over there. Because this was back in 2007. And so I'd heard several of the stories, but it was one of those things of that, you know, at that time I believed in ghosts for the most part, because I dealt with them growing up. But a lot of the other stuff, it was still kind of one of those, is all right, is this mythology? What is this? So it was kind of like thinking that they were pulling my leg or something along those lines.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so it was just because it was a different time in my life, where at that point in time I didn't want to really believe in a lot of that stuff,
Hmm.
even though I'd had a lot of weird stuff happen to me. But I wasn't exactly in the same location that a lot of their stories was coming from.
Right. Oh yeah, there was a couple of different platoons of Rangers that had incidents where they came in contact with like giants, like the giant of Kandahar.
Yeah,
And it's not just rumor from one troop to another. It's the guys that went through it who are actually telling the story of seeing it, and they were told, they had to sign non-disclosure agreements, and still some of them talked to their friends because they couldn't just, it was a PTSD. They just couldn't get around.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
PTSD is one thing, seeing your buddies get killed and having explosives blow off people's limbs, which is horrible. And seeing all that and hearing explosions and gunfire all the time, that's one PTSD. But seeing something abnormally large, like a 15 to 18-foot giant, coming at you with a spear, a crudely fashioned spear, is another thing. Now, it's not so odd because in our research, at least Jay and I, we can tell you that our research into cryptids and things here in the United States, I mean, we do it from all over the world, but in the United States, Native American Indians, there's burial grounds, and some of the grounds that were inadvertently unearthed, they had giant bones under the ground.
Oh yeah.
I mean, these people were 18 feet, some of them 20, 21. I mean, so if they have them here, why not in Afghanistan, where
exactly
some of our Ranger guys have seen them?
All the mythology and everything from the Norse, the Vikings, and their thoughts.
Oh yeah, they've talked about the giants for forever. I mean, I can't pick up a book on any Norse legend. There must be some truth.
Not dealing with, yeah. And then at the same time, that's more so what the mythology and everything else, and the ideology that I follow is more so on the Norse faith.
Right.
And so in their mythology, obviously Loki has offspring. One of the offspring is Fenrir. Fenrir is the great wolf. Great wolf also had offspring. His offspring were supposed to be abnormally large wolves that could walk on their hind legs and were extremely intelligent and extremely chaotic.
Gee, what does that sound like to you?
Paints the picture.
Yeah, paints a picture of what we're talking about a Dogman is these days.
Yep, perfectly.
And my thoughts on the reason why they are getting more common is because, well, in the Norse mythology, there's 9 worlds. All right. Everybody always seems to think there's extra dimensions or everything else. Maybe these things are an extra dimensional being. So what's going on? Why are there more sightings of them here lately? I mean, you look in any book, most all of the signs of the apocalypse are happening.
Yeah.
One of the bigger signs of Ragnarok is that the doorways between the worlds are more accessible. So the doorways between the realm of the giants and the realm that these things are hiding in is more accessible. Most of the time, the doorways are always tied to trees, which is kind of unique. That they, and I've seen where a lot of people will say that these things have just essentially walked into trees and disappeared.
Oh yeah, we hear that a lot. Sasquatch too.
What's that? Yeah.
Yep.
And so the Sasquatch, most of their descriptions are very fitting for a lot of the Norse
That's right.
descriptions of the giants,
That's right.
Exactly.
because the giants and all these things were supposed to be able to do magic. They were supposed to be able to do a glimmer where they could kind of hide and everything else, or look like something that's not there or something that is there, basically to do where a human eye would not be able to see them.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you, John, I gotta say something. I mean, everybody knows I put this out there. My mantra is to prove or to disprove, things in cryptozoology. And I
Yep.
gotta say, I agree with you from a couple of different levels. Number one, quantum physics, which is a real science, has proven that there are 11 different dimensions out there. Cryptozoology, which is what Jay and I study, and a lot of other people out there study, creatures that have been seen but not yet proven by science. And the reports that we've gone over, what is it now, a decade plus, people have said Sasquatch, he's near a tree, and then suddenly he disappears. What you're calling doorways, we're calling portals. Same thing. A rose is a rose, and they're disappearing. How are they disappearing so easily? They're there 1 second in the middle of a field and they're gone.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm fairly sure I know where there is one that's down in those woods. It's on the neighboring property. Growing up, we used to, before it sold, we had permission to go back in there and go hike around and everything. We always went back in there as kids. There's this one tree, is a Sayo orange, or whatever you want to call it, bodark. And it was in a clearing next to the creek line, which was actually next to a couple of unmarked graves. And nothing else would grow in that area. I mean, there was grass and stuff, but all the trees were kind of away from it. The canopy for this tree went all the way to the ground, and it was so thick that you couldn't see in under it, except for one spot where another tree was kind of growing up, and it held it up almost like a little passageway or a tunnel that you could go through. And you would go down into that area and all sound would stop, like all the crickets, all the insects, birds, everything. Nothing would make noise in that area. So we, growing up, we were always kind of intimidated by that. Finally, kind of in my younger teenage years, I finally said, the hell with it, I'm crawling under there to see what's under there. So 2 friends stayed outside. I went under there. The air was thick. It was, very ozone style, like very staticky, very thick and everything else. Shortly after going in there, it sounded like thousands and thousands of voices speaking in languages that I couldn't understand, couldn't completely hear or anything else. It just it felt thick and heavy in there, almost like you're going through a fog, a really heavy fog. And you had those voices all around you and everything else. And I'm going along through there, and you could see some markings that were essentially carved into the tree trunk. And I had no idea what they were at the time. I saw them. I remember them. And whenever I got out of there, I was intending on looking them up, thinking, okay, what are these markings carved in this tree? And I'm in North Texas, so it's like, all right, were these Indian markings or what? And because the tree had to be 100 years old. I mean, it was a massive bodark. And I go to get out of there, and I thought I was under there for 10 minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes. And I get out of it, and my friends were like, what the hell? We've been yelling at you for the last 20 minutes. I'm like, 20 minutes? I've only been under there 10 minutes. I'm like, no, you were under there for 45.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, okay. Then all of a sudden, my body felt like it was burning. I started looking around, and it looked like I had paper cuts all down my arms, my legs, and everywhere. it looked like I'd run through a barbed wire fence and a briar patch and got tangled up in it all.
Mm.
And I still have some of them were actually deep enough they scarred.
Oh,
So it definitely interesting on that. Come to find out, the markings were runes.
ah,
And the runes were basically essentially said Jägersdru, the life tree.
okay.
So I don't know why that would be in North Texas. I have no idea why a tree would have that on it. But at the same time, the life tree was supposed to have ties through all areas of the world.
Right.
All the trees were supposed to be tied together through the root system and everything else. So this area was kind of my thinking that it could be what y'all call a portal.
Yeah.
It definitely had that feeling to it, I would say. So the time shift and everything else that I dealt with, because even my watch only showed that I was under there for 5 to 10 minutes, where theirs showed 45. So
That's incredible.
definitely weird on that part. And like I said, I've always had to deal with ghosts and stuff, so I was kind of used to the weird stuff. All my friends hated staying out of the house because if we left the pool table cleared off, you'd hear the pool balls bouncing around at 3 o'clock in the morning. Or you'd see shadows going down the hallway, or all kinds of stuff like that. And gotten dragged out of my bed twice.
Oh,
One of the times I'm sitting there trying to figure out what the heck happened, my dad opens the door and says, "Hey, we got fire outside." I'm like, okay.
oh, wow.
So that one we kind of attributed to kind of being like a guardian angel or something of the sorts. But
Something.
it usually only woke me up for a reason. Otherwise, it never anything that actually was harmful for the most part, but it was just that. That tree though, I went back down there last year just out of curiosity to take a look at it, and it was me and my friend and then another researcher that had come out. He was terrified because again, as soon as we got to that tree, it went dead silent. Okay, my friend that was with me, airborne ranger, and then me. Both of us were well armed, and sure enough, everything went dead silent, and then you could start hearing twigs snap on 3 different sides of us. So we were being surrounded, and it was kind of one of those things of like, okay, time to go, out, go. So it was almost like they're protecting that area, period.
Right.
I'd like to preempt some questions that we're going to probably get when this podcast airs rather. People are going to say, well, when John went underneath the foliage and up to that tree where the carvings were, everything, how come, if it was a portal, how come he didn't slip through to another dimension? Well, I just want to remind people that everything on this world and probably the other world and the cryptid world, they all have a certain vibration, a speed that we all vibrate at. We as humans don't vibrate at the same speed as a Sasquatch or a Dogman or a Mothman or any such, things like that, cryptids like that do go interdimensional, to other sections that just are there 1 second and they're gone the next. So most likely that's the reason why John didn't slip through to another portal. However, he did hear certain things, and because of being the person he is, he probably saw certain things in there and heard things in there that other people would not, because he's more attuned. Would you say that was more along the lines being correct there, John?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, because if you vibrated at the right speed, you probably would have slipped right through and you wouldn't be talking to us
Most
today.
likely. Yeah. most likely.
I mean, I believe that's how a Dogman and Sasquatch at least are going between, you know, now you see me, now you don't. You know, it's either that or it's an alien race in a spacecraft and they're beaming them up, one or the other. And the portal seems to answer more questions though than being beamed up. Although the beam up thing is something too, because we see, at least I found, and I think Jay has found in talking with people in our research, a lot of times when people see Dogman and Sasquatch, they do see orbs in the sky. So it's a toss up here, and it's the more we're learning about it, the more questions we're getting. You know, more questions we have. Absolutely. So, John, that last venture there to that tree of life. I mean, did it look like a tree of life? You know, like the kind that they have.
Looked like it was dying.
Looked like it was dying. And there was 3 of you there that day, or just 2?
There's 3 of us.
3 of you. Okay, so and you all had the same sensation that the place just went dead quiet.
Yep. So it went dead quiet and everything else. I did actually manage to snap a picture that you can just vaguely see something in the shadows.
Did you ever try and take a picture of the tree?
Yes.
Did it come out? I'm just curious.
Yes, actually it did. Like I said, it's not like it used to be. The canopy doesn't come all the way to the ground anymore. And like I said, that was over 20 years ago. So I hadn't seen that tree in about 20 years. So
it sounds like everything else on the earth here, you know. It's probably a portal that's, I'm not trying to joke about this either. It's probably a portal that's not used very much. So they're not going to maintain it, you know, water it, maintain it, nurture it or whatever, trim it, prune it.
Quite possibly.
It's probably not
my
being
grandmother,
used as much.
My grandmother always called those trees the fairy trees.
Yeah, for good reason.
Yeah. And so I've got several of them on my property. One of them, it's always kind of had that same kind of feeling, and it's half of it's dead. Half of it died probably 8-9 years ago, and so it's just kind of one of those things. It's like a lot of them are not doing anything to them to kill them, but they're just kind of dying, and rather concerning on some of those, because I mean they're old trees. They've been there for 100 years or so.
Forever, yeah. Now, John, that tree that the 3 of you guys went to, the one that you also went underneath when you were younger, is that on the land that's certified to be, you know, built on?
Developed?
Yeah,
yes.
Developed. And I can just imagine, Jay, I can imagine they take this tree down, if they can do it. What happens when they're trying to take it down? And then what happens if they do put a house on that? Did you guys have basements over there in Texas where you are?
No, we don't.
All right, so
and luckily
that
tree is in an area where they will not. It's in an area that they've designated will be a green belt. But they are planning on putting houses right up to the creek. So it'd be right on the other side of the creek from that tree.
Oh darn! I was hoping they would put it right on top of that tree.
Nah,
that would be hell.
They're wanting to put the city center where they have it drawn on their little development map is right where my grandfather was watching the Comanche bury their dead.
Oh,
so
man. No.
They can have fun with that.
No.
Fun with that.
Oh. That's nothing good can come of that. Nothing good can come of that if they do that.
No. That's where they're wanting to put the city center.
Oh,
so like, y'all have fun with that.
Yeah.
They're wanting to build a rec hall and all this other stuff and have a little town square there. Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Suddenly they'll have a sinkhole over there and they're going to wonder why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, one way or another, if they want to put that town hall and all that other stuff over there, you know, a little city, they're going to have to take it down then, right?
So that is, No, that where that tree's at, it's going to be in the green belt. That's 1,800 acres over there.
Oh, so it wouldn't be touched.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
Okay.
touched.
All right, I understand now. But
So-
still, it's gonna be around that area.
Yeah.
Not going to be far from it. There's going to be a lot of houses and everything else right in that area close to where that tree's at.
Things might pick up for that tree then, and people might start going missing and stuff. We'll have to keep an eye on that in the future.
Got a feeling if they actually do what they want to do, there's going to be a lot of people that go missing, and it won't be just because of the supernatural. One of the creeks that their big selling point is this certain creek that runs through it,
Yeah.
and on its normal level, it's got about 1 inch of water running through in most of the area. If it has 6 inches of water on there, a man cannot walk across it.
Oh, wow.
Without getting his feet swept out from under him. If it's got 1 foot of water, it'll sweep a 1-ton truck down it.
Why so?
It's just that swift.
Oh, it's that swift. Oh, I got you.
Yep.
All right.
So they're wanting to put these houses next to it, and I've seen it where it's had 6 foot of water in that shallowest spot. So there's going to be several people that get washed down the creek just from that.
Sure.
Which is a horrible thing, but that's their whole selling point is this creek. How beautiful it is and how fun it is to play in.
Yeah.
To play in. Okay.
Yeah. Like I used to love going back there and go fishing in it. It's very tranquil. It's very nice to go fishing in it. But you definitely know if it's raining upstream, you don't stay in it.
Right.
I was gonna say, I mean, what happens if you have torrential rains? Would that thing flood? I mean, would you get 3 or 4 feet of water?
I've seen it actually. The area that they're wanting to put their road that just crosses my creek that runs through me, I've seen it 6 foot underwater.
Ooh.
I mean, I know where I am. I'm in New Jersey. You want to build a house, it has to be X amount of feet away from water. And if the water isn't down, in like a Gulf type thing, with maybe 6 feet of earth on either side, you have to be 100 feet away from that, because if you're in a floodplain, you can't get insured. And if you can't get insured, you're not going to get a mortgage.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
so they're going off of what floodplains used to be, and I've looked at their floodplain map and it's all wrong. So
I mean, don't they know things change every 100 years? I mean, look at the weather we're having now. Since when does it snow in Southern California? Well, it snowed this year. And since when does it not snow in New Jersey?
Mm-hmm.
I had like at most, well, it snowed twice. I had a 1/4 of an inch once and a 1/2 inch another time. And that was it. And then suddenly we were getting 80-degree weather in March. I mean, it was crazy. That's not correct weather. So weather changes, every 100 years or so. And who knows where you guys are, you might start getting floods down here again. Right where they want to put houses.
We've been getting plenty of floods down here. So, and I think that's something that's kind of put them behind schedule.
Wow. That is really something.
It is.
And Jay, you have any more questions with John? Because we're running out of film time here.
No, I think we covered everything. That was incredible. That's just an amazing.
That's really some amazing stuff. I mean, you and I, we go on Facebook Messenger and talk about it over the last, I guess 2 years or so now. But just to hear you talk about it, that is amazing. Plus all the stuff you've gone through over there. The only thing I can say is, up your armaments and always be aware out there, because you don't know. You don't know with all that building going on. You might be the center focus of those cryptids.
Everything, yeah, because I have upgraded my armaments. Of course, I've always had several, but I've gotten a few upgrades as far as something that works a little faster and a little better.
Good, good, good.
I did just pick me up one of the semi-automatic shotguns.
Ah, all right.
The good old Saga.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so that thing pretty much goes everywhere with me. I've got it on a sling. It rides around with a 15-round drum. So
maybe you want to alternate Sabo rounds with
Buckshot.
some 000 buck, you know?
so it's got double up buck, and then I've got some that are some specialty rounds that are reloaded with 2 .64 caliber
Ooh,
lead balls.
Nice. You said that's an
So-
auto?
Say again?
That's the one you have. It's auto?
Yeah, semi-auto.
All right, semi-auto. So as you pull that trigger, it goes.
Yep.
I had fired a Benelli, and I had 5 cases, shotgun cases, still in the air after the 5th one went off. That's how fast this thing fires. So I can imagine
Yep.
what that Sager would do.
Yeah. So like I said, I got a 15-round drum in it, and I usually carry 2 sticks with me.
Nice.
So it's definitely enough to take care of any coyotes or mountain lions or anything else.
I
So
would say so.
Yeah.
They'd be hurting after that. They would definitely be hurting. And
it should be at least enough to make it decide to turn around.
I'd love
Right.
to hear if that random Dogman comes out and decides to get within range, of
Yeah.
that shotgun. See what would happen.
Well, they've been keeping their distance as far as that goes. They're usually staying around 200 yards now.
Damn.
So very rarely will I see one closer than that anymore.
Time to get you an H-bar fluted 308 with some 200 grain
got the-
200 grain bullets and a nice scope.
Got HK91 or the FNFAL.
Yeah.
So like I said, I've got plenty, and I've got some high-powered ones. So it's just generally, especially for nighttime, I'm a lot more comfortable with that shotgun for not carrying as far to where I don't have any collateral damage.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely. All right, John, listen, man, I do appreciate you coming on with us. Excellent. Good information.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you again. And Jay,
Yep.
take care now, man.
Yeah. Have a good night, Nick. John, thanks again, everyone. We will be back next week with another awesome guest. And thanks, John, again. It was a real pleasure. That was unbelievable stuff. So
Great.
you and everyone be good to each other, and God bless.
Good night now.